We don't need no undereducated fools in this company, Haga. Brown finally uttered the words that should never have been spoken. Being incompetent just costs the company, so I'm out, huh? When I asked if that meant I was being fired, Brown nodded fiercely, as if he had finally made his point clear. You understand then. Well, you better get started on that resignation letter, Haga. Do you know how to write one? If not, a quick search online should show you how, Haga. I've been holding it in, but this is the last straw. Then, look forward to tomorrow. You'll surely see hell, Haga. I gave Brown my final notice. But it seems he took it as me saying I'd bring my resignation tomorrow, and he didn't care at all. He completely ignored my mention of seeing hell. He must have thought it meant I would be the one to see hell. However, it's him who will surely see hell. My name is Sam, a 53-year-old working in sales. At this age, my position is still just as section chief. Normally, by my age, you'd at least expect someone to have made it to a manager position. So it's fair to say my career progression has been pretty slow. But I really like this company. After all, despite being fairly well known, they hired me, a high school graduate. Well, when I graduated high school, it was just before the bubble economy burst, so there's that. Still, I'm grateful they hired me despite only having a high school diploma. And for a certain reason, I leave on time almost every day, which this company allows. It's not uncommon to find companies where working overtime is the norm. However, our company has essentially issued a directive not to work overtime. For someone like me who has things to do after returning home, it's truly a blessing. But then, suddenly, everything changed one day. The new director of sales, Brown, who was transferred in, has a mindset that's totally from the showy era. Working overtime is expected. In fact, if you don't work overtime, you're not seen as working hard. Leaving on time is out of the question. Because of that mindset, me leaving on time almost every day naturally put me in his sights. Especially since Brown and I are the same age, it seems to have really irked him. The logic being, since we've lived through the same era, it's natural we'd share the same views. Sure, there might be few people my age who think working overtime is a waste. But nowadays, more and more people believe we shouldn't have to work overtime. Sticking to the mindset of our youth doesn't sit right with me. But it seems that Brown doesn't see it that way. Sam, you're leaving too early. When I finished my work and was about to leave on time as usual, Brown called me out. If I were leaving before the end of my shift. His remarks might have been justified, yet it was well past the official end of the day. I'm just leaving because it's the end of my shift. Just because it's the end of your shift, if days work left, it's only natural to stay and finish it. Back in my day, it was common sense to work an extra 2 to 3 hours daily. You're the same age as me, aren't you? Can't believe someone my age would leave on time. With all due respect, Director, I have completed all my tasks for the day. I'm not leaving any work unfinished. The implication that I was abandoning my work to go home was more than I could tolerate. I always work hard from the morning, striving not to leave any work for overtime. It really doesn't sit right with me that people who dawdle and try to rack up overtime pay are the ones who get praised. But such logic doesn't fly with a director stuck in old-timey ways. You've only finished the bare minimum, right? If you look for it, there's always work to be done. You're in sales, so you could be looking for new leads or creating slick presentation materials. The company isn't a place where you get paid just for staying till the end of your shift. Because he was so insistent, I ended up working overtime that day, albeit reluctantly. With nothing specific to do, I customized some presentation materials for clients. Sure, if I really wanted to, I could find endless tasks to do, just as Brown had said. But if we start on that path, the work will never end. Ever since I couldn't reconcile with the situation, I've been sneaking out at the end of my shift to avoid the director's gaze. I make my exit when he's engaged in conversation with others or away from his desk, so he doesn't notice me leaving on time. One day, Brown called me out on it. "Hey, you've been sneaking out at the end of your shift every day, haven't you? You think you're getting away with it. But I'm on to you. Don't underestimate me." Brown seemed to be in a particularly bad mood. He raised his voice more than usual as he scolded me. "And about that report you made the other day, what's up with that? The numbers are all over the place." Saying that, Brown showed me the printed out report. Upon closer inspection, the numbers were indeed slightly off. With these prices, not only would our profit be non-existent, but we'd actually be incurring losses the more we sold. Indeed, the numbers are incorrect, but this isn't the document I created. At least, I never input these numbers. You did all the other parts, right? Then it's obvious you entered the numbers too. Don't try to muddle through with nonsensical excuses. It's true that I created the document itself, but the numbers have been altered from when I worked on it. I remember these prices perfectly, so there's no way I could be mistaken. Moreover, I had a junior colleague double-check everything when I finished. I'm confident because I've reviewed it multiple times. It's true I'm human and could have missed something, but I had a junior colleague double-check as well. It's hard to believe that both of us would miss an obvious mistake. Still, Brown insisted it was my mistake, so I explained there was a way to verify whether it was my mistake or not. When I finished this, I sent it to all relevant parties at the same time, attaching this document. Most people probably didn't even look at it since they were just included via CC. And I doubt you opened it, Brown, however. If you check the document from that time, you'll see that I didn't make a mistake with the numbers. Hearing this, Brown's face visibly paled. Then, he made an absurd accusation. "There's no need to look at that. It's wrong, obviously. Even if the numbers in that attachment were correct, you must have changed the numbers before printing it out. So, there's no evidence that you didn't make a mistake. Of course, if someone deliberately changed the numbers before printing, it would make sense for the document attached to the email to have different figures. But it's unthinkable that anyone would do such a thing." I was infuriated by Brown's audacity to suggest something so far removed from common sense. There's no way I'd do something like that. If that were the case, it would have to be intentional, and there's absolutely no benefit to me in doing such a thing. I don't know if there's any benefit to you. Maybe you were asked by a rival company to cause damage to us, and then, once the damage was done, you'd switch jobs or something. That's ridiculous. Besides, I don't even remember printing the document. Who printed this? It doesn't matter who printed it. I don't know, and I don't need to know. Either way, there's no way to prove your innocence. Once it's gotten to this point, there indeed seems to be no way to prove it. I moved beyond anger to frustration, feeling like I was on the verge of tears despite my age. I wanted to refute my boss. But I remained silent because I dreaded him noticing my quivering voice, and that I was about to cry. Then, Brown said with a look of triumph, "Are you finally admitting that it was your mistake? You should have just admitted it from the beginning. You, with your lowly high school diploma, don't waste my valuable time with such nonsense." The fact that I only graduated from high school had absolutely nothing to do with the mistake. Nevertheless, he says such things probably because Brown believes that high school grad equal incapable of working properly. Since Brown is a graduate of a prestigious university, he likely subscribes to the notion that prestigious university grad equal capable. At this age, I found myself wishing I had graduated from college, even if it was through night classes or a distance learning program. Especially since my educational background keeps being brought up. But then again, even if I had graduated from such institutions, I'd probably just be scoffed at by Brown, who seems to only value those who've managed to get into more prestigious universities through competitive exams. In the end, it seems Brown just wants to belittle those he considers beneath him. People with low education just half-ass their jobs, make mistakes, and don't even admit to them. Is there any value in paying such people a salary? How about returning the excess salary you've received? Haha. Now, the mistake has been pinned entirely on me. At this point, I don't really care either way, but being criticized for my education really irks me. Education has nothing to do with it. Isn't it strange to be fussing over educational backgrounds after the age of 50? That's a story from 30 years ago. Ever heard the saying, "What's set by 3 lasts till 100? The way you live up to the age of 3 can change your whole life. If that's the case, then whether you go to college or not is even more significant, right? A little thought, and you'd understand that much. Honestly, it's not a line of reasoning I can truly grasp, but arguing with Brown seems futile at this point. I decided to accept the mistake and resubmitted the corrected document. Still, it's frustrating. I'm certain I entered the correct numbers. The document I emailed to everyone had the right numbers entered. It's possible someone did this deliberately to set me up. However, since I have no evidence, making a fuss about it now would likely be detrimental to me as well. A few weeks later, I was called in by Brown again, who pointed out errors in the document I had prepared. This time, the mistake was far worse than before, not just a minor numerical error. The error was in the magnitude of the numbers. Moreover, it concerned a product expected to sell well. And had this document circulated to our clients, it could have led to a major issue. Given the nature of the mistake, it's likely someone would have noticed it before the contract was finalized. But the thought of a large contract being signed with those figures was horrifying. After the last incident, I had been thoroughly checking for mistakes and even had 2 juniors review it, so there really shouldn't have been any errors. Of course, I had uploaded the final document to the server right before printing. And I hadn't made any changes to the numbers after that. I was confident last time, but a mistake like this now is just impossible. I told Brown this, but he refused to accept it, insisting it was my fault. You're probably going to say the same thing as last time, about double-checking and having the final version saved. But it's the same story. You must have changed the numbers right before printing. Do you have a grudge against our company? As I remained silent, Brown got carried away and started blaming me more aggressively. I don't know what you think you're gaining by doing this, but making a similar mistake in such a short period is unthinkable. If it wasn't on purpose, then it's a sign of incredible incompetence. Normally, one would take measures not to repeat the same mistake. So, what? Being a high school grad means you don't have the brains to think, haha. Smirking, Brown seemed to take pleasure in berating me. It seems he takes considerable pleasure in belittling people with lower education. Hard to believe he's someone in a leadership position. Incompetent low educates are useless to the company, haha. Finally, Brown uttered the words that should never be said. Incompetence is a cost, and it means termination, right? When I asked if he meant I was being fired, Brown nodded vigorously, as if he had been waiting for me to catch on. Ah, you got it. Then, you better start writing your resignation letter, haha. Know how to write one? If not, just search online. You'll find it, haha. I've been patient up to now, but I've reached my limit. It's just too much to be handed a termination notice. Then, look forward to tomorrow. You'll surely see hell, haha. I gave Brown a final warning. But it seems he took it as me saying I would bring my resignation letter tomorrow, and he didn't care in the slightest. He completely ignored the part about seeing hell. He probably thought I meant I would be the one to see hell. But of course, it will be Brown who will see hell. The next day, the company was bustling with preparations for the annual shareholders meeting. Though not much related to the sales department, the entire company felt somewhat different than usual. Even the CEO looked tense, a rarity for him. Since those in managerial positions and above are required to attend the shareholders meeting, Brown from the sales department went to the meeting venue. Usually hearty, Brown was a bit nervous about not offending the shareholders. But upon entering, he was surprised to see who was sitting there. I was sitting in the front row of the shareholders section. "What are you doing here? Today is the shareholders meeting. This isn't a place for someone like you." "Oh, no need to worry about that. I'm a shareholder." "Ah, you mean you bought shares through the employee stock purchase plan?" "I have some too, but normally employees who buy that way don't attend the shareholders meeting." "Don't you know that? That's why you don't see any other employees here. Now that you understand, head back to the office." "It's not like that. I'm a shareholder who has owned company shares since the beginning. I usually don't attend the shareholders meeting, but this time I felt like showing up, so I won't be leaving." As we were having this back and forth, a man from behind spoke to us. "What's going on here? There are other shareholders around, so please stop arguing over such matters." Turning around, there stood the CEO. Brown was taken aback and straightened up immediately. "I'm sorry, an employee from our department has intruded here. We'll have him leave immediately. Please wait a moment." "You are?" The CEO, surprised to see my face. "Are you attending the shareholders meeting today?" "Yes, I'm not really fond of these gatherings, so I usually don't attend. Please don't mind my presence too much." "Understood. K, the shareholders meeting is about to start. Brown, please take your seat." But, however, Brown seemed regretful that he couldn't expel me. However, with time pressing, he glared at me and took his seat. The shareholders meeting began and proceeded smoothly without any hitches. When it came time for questions from shareholders, I took the opportunity to ask mine. "There's a supervisor in this company who unfairly looks down on subordinates based on their educational background. What are your thoughts on this matter?" "I was not aware of such a case, but if it exists, we will promptly deal with the supervisor in question," the CEO answered. At this, Brown, who knew he was the one in question, turned pale. Looking down on subordinates unfairly is one thing. But altering documents for one's own ego, causing detriment to the company, is another matter entirely. What do you think about that? If there's someone doing that, they would be immediately fired. I hope no such person exists in our company. Ultimately, at the shareholders meeting, I managed to get a commitment from the CEO to take action against Brown. After the meeting ended, Brown came running up to me. "Hey, what do you think you're doing? Did you go snitching to the CEO about me? I haven't mentioned you by name at all. What, do you have something to confess, like looking down on subordinates unjustly or tampering with documents, perhaps, Haga?" "Well, that's..." As Brown faltered, the CEO's voice spoke from behind. "I'd like to hear more about the matter mentioned earlier. Do you have a moment?" As the CEO addressed me, a desperate Brown started to interrupt, disregarding his appearance. "President, you shouldn't take what this man says seriously. It's absurd for someone who owns just a few shares to come to the shareholders meeting and speak ill of the company. Moreover, this man is an employee of our company. It's crazy for an employee to badmouth their own company. I only spoke because I thought it might help the company improve. I attended the shareholders meeting because I believed it was a place where shareholders could freely express their opinions. Is that not the case?" "What do you mean by freely? Don't try to act smart using difficult words, especially when you're just a high school grad. Anyway, let's ignore what this guy is saying." "Brown, what are you talking about? We cannot ignore the opinion of a major shareholder. And your remarks just now, aren't they indicative of the kind of supervisor who looks down on others? Aren't you the one we're talking about?" Brown, out of habit, ended up speaking abusively towards me even in front of the CEO. He hurriedly tried to correct himself. But then, Brown suddenly raised his voice. What do you mean by major shareholder? Sam here, is there some misunderstanding? What are you talking about? Haven't you seen the name of the major shareholder? It's always listed in the documents." I do recall seeing the name Sam, but I never imagined it referred to this Sam. Brown's face went pale, and he was at a loss for words. Sam owns 33.3% of our company's shares, making him a major shareholder. It's impossible to ignore a request from such a shareholder, given your behavior just now. I suspect the investigation will be concluded quickly. To own 33.3% would require tens of billions of yen. Sam here has that kind of personal wealth. Brown seemed unable to believe the CEO's words. And that's understandable. The idea of someone possessing personal wealth in the billions and still working a regular job at the company might be hard to grasp for the average person. Sam earns an income through side ventures that we couldn't make in a lifetime. Well, calling it a side job might be a bit misleading. It's more lucrative than this main job. What does he do? Brown seems genuinely curious about what I do to earn so much. It's through investing, mainly through foreign exchange trading, or FX. Of course, there are losses too. And you earn tens of billions of yen doing that. Sam is quite famous in that world. He started with just 500,000 yen, and made about 8 billion yen in 10 years. 8 billion yen. The reason I always left on time every day was to trade FX. FX trading allows for investment 24 hours a day, unlike stocks. I spend almost every night glued to my computer until 2 or 3 in the morning, investing. FX trading changed my life. There were ups and downs, but at one point, my profits exceeded 10 billion yen. Indeed, focusing solely on FX can lead to losses of nearly 100 million yen in a day. So I was considering diversifying into real estate and stocks when our company started facing financial difficulties. Knowing our company's technology was superior, I suggested to the CEO that if the company issued more shares, I would buy them all. I could have taken over the company, but managing a company didn't seem right for me, so I was happy to just keep working there. No matter how much I earned from FX, I had decided not to quit my job. I believe having a main job gives me the peace of mind that contributes to my success in FX trading. I thought it might be impossible to keep the name of a major shareholder hidden since it gets published. However, me having the very common name Sam turned out to be a stroke of luck. Even though an employee and a major shareholder shared the same name, nobody imagined they were the same person. Had my name been more unique, someone might have suspected, so having a common name might have actually been a blessing. Later, an internal investigation was conducted in the sales department. It quickly came to light that Brown had been looking down on his subordinates and unfairly evaluating them. Moreover, there were far more victims than I had thought, not just me. Of course, being a high school graduate, I was the most looked down upon. But Brown, a graduate of a top university, seemed not to consider those from universities with lower academic standards than his own as true college graduates. Even if they were, there were many employees who felt just as frustrated as I did. And when the investigation began, these employees unanimously spoke out about their unfair treatment. Furthermore, the issue of my document being tampered with was also brought to light, revealing that Brown had altered the figures and printed it himself. In fact, everyone in the department knew about his series of abuses. However, no one spoke up, fearing retaliation from Brown if they did. When confronted, Brown defiantly admitted to his actions. I did all this for the sake of the company. People who don't do overtime and leave on time every day are not needed by the company. We don't even need high school graduates in the first place. Our company is supposed to encourage leaving on time. The sales department is also supposed to leave on time, right? Could it be that you were making them do unpaid overtime? Indeed, the investigation revealed that Brown had been forcing his subordinates to do unpaid overtime. I rarely did overtime, so I was unaware, but in severe cases, it seems he made them work up to 100 hours of unpaid overtime a month. This issue also came up, and it was decided that unpaid overtime in the sales department should be completely stopped. This investigation might have been beneficial for everyone in the department. Unfair evaluation and treatment of subordinates, along with the enforcement of unpaid overtime. Following the harassment incidents I faced, Brown was demoted from his position and relegated to a rank-and-file employee. Of course, there was no place for him in the sales department anymore, so he was transferred to a branch office in a smaller town. I thought it must be tough for someone over 50 to start over as a regular employee in a different location. And sure enough, he couldn't bear it and resigned voluntarily within 3 months. His wife grew tired of him, leading to a divorce, and unable to find another full-time job, he's been juggling part-time jobs to make ends meet. It just goes to show, a high education doesn't necessarily help in every situation. In fact, I've heard rumors that he's not well liked at his part-time jobs either, seen as nothing more than an older man with too much pride. As for me, my role as a major shareholder became known to the other employees, making it impossible for me to remain just another employee. So, I ended up moving to the management side, but acting all high and mighty just isn't me. I make it a point to drop by the sales department regularly and listen to what the younger staff have to say. By bridging the gap between management and the front line, we've been able to implement various reforms swiftly, leading to a steady increase in sales. Lately, I've been thinking that maybe I'm suited for the management side after all. I aim to continue being a boss who never becomes arrogant and always listens to his subordinates' opinions. After all, lacking in talent, that's the only edge I have.